I'll transform Optimus!
Powermaster Optimus Prime, greatest leader of his time.
It's great to be back.
Hello Transformers fans, it's time for another Cybertronian history video, courtesy of the community poll posted on the channel.
That's the news I've been waiting for.
Thanks to everyone who voted. It's the year of the Powermasters, and before we start, just a few quick shoutouts to some of the websites that have mastered the power of Transformers. TF Wiki with a database of resources on Transformers that would put Teletran 1 to shame. Botch the Crab's Box Art Archive, with beautiful, clean, unadorned scans of G1 Transformers box art, as well as catalogs. Cybertron.com, that's SEIBERTRON, featuring many beautiful galleries of Transformers. Just like in the old days, if you can't own them, looking at these pictures is the next best thing. Okay, it's time for the powerful and masterful history of Hasbro and Takara's
The Transformers!
1988 edition. The gimmick-heavy trend of 87 continued into 88. The Headmasters and Targetmasters returned, albeit economy-sized this time, and they were joined by a new team of Nebulans that were binary bonded to their Cybertronian partners, the Powermasters, plus more combiners, tapes, spark shooters, and one of the most infamous Transformers gimmicks that caused Autobots and Decepticons to become a shell of their former selves. Literally, the Pretenders. Some of the 87 toys were reissued in 88, although we didn't call them reissues back then. We just called it stuff that was still for sale. The big gimmick of 87 had been the Headmasters, and it didn't get any bigger than Fortress Maximus, one of my ultimate toy and comic heroes.
We wished only for peace.
The Headmaster gimmick continued on into 88, but with more of a whimper than a bang. Only 6 Headmasters were released that year, 3 Autobots and 3 Decepticons, compared to the previous year's 11, if you count Fort Max as only 1. You could count him as 2 since he's a double Headmaster.
Exactly.
What was really disappointing is that the 88 Headmasters were downsized from the previous year. Gone were the clear canopies and full-size Nebulans. The new Headmasters, aptly named Headmaster Juniors in Japan, were pint-sized compared to the originals, and had less articulation. Even though the 88 Headmaster Junior figures are smaller, the bodies are backwards compatible, and the 87 heads still fit. Some of them got completely different decos for their Japanese releases. Although a downgrade from the previous year's Headmasters, this year's Headmasters still had an advantage over the early Transformers in that they could hold all of their weapons in vehicle mode. No subspace required. The new heads had extra helmets which could be used as seats in vehicle mode. Like the previous year, the chest panels could be flipped down in robot mode to reveal built-in tech specs meters that were activated by inserting their heads. Another downgrade, though, was that instead of 3 individual tumblers that could give different readings depending on what head you inserted, the 88 Headmasters just had 1 sliding plate. The trio of new Autobot Headmasters consisted of Nightbeat, who transformed into an Earth vehicle. Yay for that, a lot of alt modes by this point weren't based on real Earth vehicles anymore. Nightbeat's alt mode was a Porsche 959. Well, it was supposed to be anyways. At least they tried. The canopy could be opened to hold his Nebulon partner Muzzle, a PI himself. Wonder if he had his own detective show on Nebulos. Muzzle transformed into the head of Nightbeat. The Sunbow animated series had ended the previous year, so Nightbeat didn't have any North American animated appearances, except for commercials.
New Transformers are here. Incredible new Headmasters, and the driver of the vehicle becomes the head of the robot.
But most longtime fans on this side of the globe remember his featured role in the Marvel comic, spearheading the Matrix quest to find the lost creation Matrix, the detective of the Autobots if there was a crime or unsolved mystery. Nightbeat was the bot to put on the case. In Japan, the heads weren't robots like in the previous year's Headmasters animated series. They were kids, which explained their smaller size. The Transformer body was just a lifeless transector, and the kid became the Transformer when in head mode. The Headmaster Juniors version of Nightbeat was named Minerva, the first official female Transformers toy, since RC never got a G1 release. The alt mode of her transector body got an emergency transport vehicle deco. The North American Nightbeat deco was also available in Japan, but as a mail-away exclusive, for 1,800 yen and 4 robot points. The second North American Headmaster was Siren, whose vehicle mode was a Mazda RX-7-ish car, with a Fire Chief deco. I wonder if that made Red Alert paranoid about his job security. Probably.
It's a plot!
One word can be used to describe his personality: loud, due to being raised in the deafening sonic canyons of southern Cybertron.
Want to hear the most annoying sound in the world?
So naturally, he's teamed up with the soft-spoken librarian, Quig. In Japan, he was released as Go Shooter, was white instead of gray, and had a police car deco instead of fire department. Like Nightbeat, the North American deco of Siren was also available as a mail-away exclusive in Japan for the same cost. The final North American Autobot Headmaster was Hosehead, the fire truck with extending ladder. His partner was Lug, an all-star athlete on Nebulos. Unlike the other two, Lug wasn't housed in a cockpit in vehicle mode. You could stuff him into the cab, but he'd rattle around loose in there. Hosehead is described as having crossed circuits. He gets confused sometimes, like when he rescues people who have already been saved.
Everyone relax, I'm here.
Yeah, sure.
He means well though, and has one of the more inspiring bio quotes. If at first you don't succeed, keep trying. In Japan he was called Cab, or Prince Cab, and there didn't seem to be any differences from the North American version. The Decepticons got a trio of Headmasters in '88 as well, all transforming into hybrids of beasts, basically fusers before that was a term. I don't own any of them because I don't want them. It's okay to not want everything. If you love them, that's cool. I don't. Both can be true at the same time. Fangry was the Decepticon tracker. His beast mode was a bat-winged wolf with reptile tail. His Nebulan partner was Briscoe, a cartographer. How cool would it have been if it was Jerry Briscoe, though? Telling Autobots in his calm Oklahoman drawl.
If I wanted to hook you, you'd already be hooked.
When in beast mode, Briscoe is housed in Fangry's belly, but only if Briscoe wants to be. A shooter doesn't do anything he doesn't want to do. The Decepticon loose cannon, Fangry has no respect for authority and prefers to do things his own way. He was released in Japan with no changes other than his name, Wilder. First name was hopefully Gene.
Yeah.
Horrible had one of the most horrible puns for a name of any Transformer. He transformed into a bull-type monster, although he does resemble one of the terror dogs from Ghostbusters, according to TF Wiki.
Nice doggy. Cute little pooch.
The back contained the Nebulan Kreb, an obnoxious talk show host. He's perfectly paired with Horrible, an obnoxious, disgusting bully. His name in Japan was Bullhorn. And Squeezeplay was a two-legged crab monster. He was binary bonded to Locos, a Nebulan smuggler. Squeezeplay was your typical destructive Decepticon, specializing in underwater sabotage. He was called Cancer in Japan, after the zodiac sign, which his beast mode resembles.
The Transformers will return after these messages. We now return to the Transformers.
The Targetmasters were back in '88, and they were downsized as well. A great consolation, though, is that instead of each Cybertronian having only one Targetmaster partner, they had two.
Now, twin Nebulons transform into weapons the new Targetmaster Autobots need.
Behold, the double Targetmasters. John Woo and Chow Yun-Fat would love these. The two Nebulans could also combine into one weapon.
The twin Nebulons can also form a super weapon.
Targetmaster Transformers!
These 6 double Targetmasters weren't released in Japan. The trio of Autobot Targetmasters were all construction vehicles, borrowing from the Constructicon alt modes. I don't have the weapons for all of them because incomplete vintage toys are a lot cheaper than complete ones, and these were just a few bucks at a toy show. Landfill was a dump truck, and a slob. He believed that one bot's trash was this bot's treasure.
Home, sweet home.
He was partnered with Flintlock and Silencer. Quick Mix was a cement mixer, another Autobot mad scientist. Since the previous one had died, still can't believe they did Wheeljack so dirty in that movie.
That's a shock, all right.
And was paired with Boomer and Ricochet. And Scoop, the Payloader, a pretty legendary Autobot according to his bio, a great fighter with no quit in him, cool-headed, wise, clever, and generous. Always thought he was just another nondescript Autobot, but he's apparently one of the most quality beings the race ever produced, right up there with Optimus, Magnus, and Fort Max. Partnered with Hole Punch and Tracer. Hole Punch is a great name for a gun. The Decepticons got a trio of fantastic-looking Targetmasters that year. Needlenose was an F-16XL. He came with Zigzag and Sunbeam. Most Decepticons were after power. This one craved clout. This wannabe hip, cool, and trendy Decepticon was obsessed with Earth's fads, and has one of the funniest, while simultaneously saddest, bios of all. Quake was a Leopard 2 main battle tank, paired with Tip Top and Heater, another typical Decepticon destroyer with destruction as his main purpose. And Spinister was an Apache helicopter. Is it just me, or are Transformers helicopters almost always really cool looking? This is one Choppa I think Arnie would definitely want to get to. He was paired with Singe and Hairsplitter, one of the bio highlights of the year. Not the typical Decepticon destroyer, he's the Xandar of the Decepticons. Talk little, reveal less. The loner, the opposite of Needlenose. It's the quiet ones you need to watch out for. And the Nebulan contingent continued with the greatest gimmick of '88, the Powermasters.
Amazing new Transformers called Powermasters.
Their engine's the key that unlocks their Transformer energy.
Instead of their heads or weapons, these turbo-revving robots had engines that ejected and transformed into Nebulan partners. The Powermaster engines weren't just accessories, they were the key to the transformation. Unlocking a tab that allowed the vehicles to transform into robot mode. In North America, 4 Autobots, or is that 5, and 2 Decepticons, or is that 3? All depends on who's the highest bidder when it comes to Double Dealer.
Who's that new Transformer with Optimus Prime? Double Dealer, the Powermaster mercenary!
In the spirit of the previous year's Double Spy, Double Dealer could serve as either Autobot or Decepticon. While he's officially listed as an evil Decepticon on his box, his bio states that he works for whoever will pay him the most.
Therefore, one of you, the more intelligent one, naturally, will quickly pay my price.
His vehicle mode is a Neutral Allegiance ICBM missile launcher truck with no visible faction symbols. When the Autobots are the highest bidder, his Nebulan partner Nock would unlock his transformation into robot mode. When the Decepticons were the highest bidder, Scar the Bat unlocked Double Dealer's third mode, Missile-Toting Bird of Prey. This treacherous mercenary fits in more with the Decepticons.
I should say so.
From a story standpoint, despite his fighting prowess, why would the honorable Autobots want to associate with him?
That may be a problem.
Seems like they'd rather take the L with honor than win with the help of a money-grubbing, two-faced dirtbag who would turn on them in literally a second if a bigger offer came in from the other side.
Why, yes, of course!
It's for this reason I've never been able to think of him as a double agent. Like Punch, he's got a clear faction allegiance, and simply does a good impersonation of the opposing side.
I am on your side!
In Japan, he was designated a Cybertron, their name for Autobots. Instead of Powermasters, they were called Godmasters. He had a white torso and missile instead of gray, some sweet 80s vac metal chrome on his removable chest piece, and was named Double Clouder. The polar opposite was Big Red himself.
I'm Optimus Prime, leader of the Autobots.
Optimus Prime was back in '88 as Powermaster Optimus Prime.
As good as new, almost.
Although he had been brought back on the Sunbow show, it was just in his old body. To commemorate the resurrection of Robot Jesus, an upgraded chassis was needed. The cab transformed into a robot, similar to the original Optimus, but with a more tune-accurate chest, thanks to changing up his transformation a bit. His trailer transformed into a defense base, and the two could combine into a Super Powermaster.
Thanks for helping me pull myself together.
Optimus's Nebulan partner was the brilliant High Q.
I'm giving her all she's got, Captain. If I push it any harder, the whole thing will blow.
No roller this time, though. At least, not for the North American release. The back of the trailer did have an opening door, though, where you could store his parts-forming head in vehicle mode.
Good. Let's load the Energon cubes into my trailer and get out of here.
Over in Japan, this release wasn't a returning convoy, Japan's name for Optimus Prime,
You're not gonna believe this.
who had perished again the previous year on the Headmasters animated series.
Good grief.
It was a completely different character. The truck/body was intended to be a replacement for Convoy, but came under the control of trucker Jinrai.
Masterforce!
The Japanese release had a number of fantastic upgrades over the North American version. Die-cast on the cab like the original '84 Optimus instead of all plastic. Blue-tinted windows instead of stickers. Retractable fists and longer arms on the combined mode instead of fixed fists and shorter, stubbier arms. More chromed parts, more silvery-looking plastic. And the biggest addition of all, an extra trailer attachment that could transform, or parts form, into the robot God Bomber. Is God Bomber an upgraded roller?
Affirmative.
Maybe. Roller had 6 wheels, God Bomber has 6 wheels.
Very perceptive.
Roller was silver or blue. God Bomber is silver and blue. Thing is, Roller could be either a living machine like other Autobots, or just a remote-controlled drone, depending on your own headcanon.
From the looks of it, I'd say a little of both.
In Japan, when the cab combines with the trailer, he's called Super Jinrai. From there, he can combine again, because '88 was all about combining, with God Bomber to form God Jinrai. One of the biggest G1 Transformers not named Fortress Maximus ever made.
Megatron's in for a very large shock.
Luckily, North Americans got a chance to own this epic upgraded version years ago with both a Takara reissue set as well as a commemorative series Toys R Us exclusive as Powermaster Optimus Prime with Apex armor. Optimus got 3 Powermaster troops to lead into battle. The wonderful trend of realistic Earth alt modes continued with Getaway, another Mazda RX-7.
Hold on, you!
You don't think I can handle danger? See that? There's no hair under here, bro. It makes me aerodynamic when I fight. I can take danger.
He included Rev, the Nebulan scientist.
He knows my name! He knows my name! He's acting weird! Freaking out, man! You're paranoid!
One of the brighter Transformers, Getaway lives up to his name by being the Harry Houdini of the Autobots. He's an escape artist.
I'm gonna flex and bust out of here.
He escaped a redeco in Japan and looked the same, along with his engine, but didn't escape a name change. He was known as Lightfoot there. Well, the engine was at least, since in Japan the bodies were just transectors to be controlled, like with Headmasters. Another version of Rev was released individually, recolored and renamed Zetka. Slapdash was a Formula One race car.
There's a big, hairy American winning machine. If you ain't first, you're last.
Paired with Lube, a buttoned-up serious type who is driven crazy by Slapdash's absent-mindedness and sloppiness.
Shake and bake!
What does that do? Does that blow your mind? That just happened.
Shake and bake.
I mean, this guy sometimes can't transform because he left his Powermaster engine behind. How's that for no foresight? They were released in Japan as Road King, and Lube was recolored and renamed Volet for a single release. And Joyride was a Baja buggy.
I don't know if you know this, but the fish taco started in the Baja.
And included Hotwire, a reformed car thief and mechanic from Nebulos.
I am a bad man.
He's the fast-driving, free spirit that irritates the most serious-minded Autobots. They got a major recolor for their Japanese release under the name Ranger. Hotwire got a third recolor in Japan and was released individually as Aquastar.
The Transformers will return after these messages. We now return to the Transformers.
The Decepticons got a pair of Powermasters in addition to Double Dealer.
Uh-oh, air attack.
Darkwing was a Tornado GR1 fighter and included Throttle, the Nebulan Burglar.
He's hardly burglar material.
Darkwing was a miserable pessimist and hell-bent on bringing everyone around him down with him. He was recolored in Japan as Hydra. His cohort was Dreadwind, the F-16 fighting Falcon jet.
Eat this!
He was paired with High Test, a perfectionist who was High Q's rival on Nebulos.
Absolutely perfect.
Birds of a feather flock together, and so do jets. Dreadwind was just as miserable as Darkwing. He was recolored and released in Japan as Buster. Since 88 was all about combining, these two could combine with each other to form the superjet Dreadwing.
Prepare yourselves for extinction, flesh shards!
Despite the cool combining gimmick, they still weren't happy. Well, you know what they say, if you're not happy with what you have, you won't be happy with what you get. The two Japanese recolors were released together as a gift set called Dark Wings. And finally, he never saw release in North America, but in Japan and Europe, another Decepticon Powermaster was released. A Decepticon so big, he required 2 Powermaster engines, the biggest G1 Decepticon ever made.
Nothing lies beyond my grasp!
Overlord was a double Powermaster, in addition to a couple of other gimmicks. He included Mega and Giga, the engines to power his tank and jet components. He was a Duocon, 2 vehicles that combined to form a robot, minus the spring-loaded action from the previous year.
You're all doomed!
And a triple changer, with vehicle modes, robot mode, and base mode. This is one of the ultimate white whales of G1 Transformers.
The human is right!
And has never been reissued.
A temporary situation.
But hopefully will someday for everyone in North America who never had a chance to own the original.
Silence, you insignificant portable virus!
Blaster's tape army grew by 2 with Grand Slam, the war-weary tank who's recorded too many somber sounds of battle. Rain Dance, the jet, was a daredevil who captivated Autobots with his death-defying tales. Neither cassette had a robot mode, but they could combine into the robot named Slam Dance.
Right on! You boys are about to get shut down!
Slam Dance is somewhat of a melding of the 2 personalities to create the ultimate Autobot journalist who will stop at nothing to uncover the truth of events. Soundwave got a tape combiner of his own that year. Squawk Talk was a bird that would not shut up. Imagine Blur without the fast talking. Often threatened with having his vocal circuitry ripped out and wrapped around his beak to shut him up. He was paired with the ill-tempered robotic Gorilla Beast Box. They could combine to form the robot Squawk Box. The Passionate Musician? I didn't see that one coming.
The purest, most vibrant, most perfect harmony I've ever heard.
None of the cassette combiners were sold at retail in Japan, but they were offered as a mailway exclusive with their North American decos. The previous year saw a sparking gimmick with the Monster Bots, which continued into 88 with the Sparkabots and Firecons.
And here come the Sparkabots.
And when they're fighting, man, you see sparks fly as the Firecons battle the Sparkabots.
In vehicle mode, they could be wound up by pushing them forward and roll on their own, and winding them up produced sparks. For the Autobots, Fizzle was another Baja buggy.
I'm in the
Bang, baby.
The opposite of Slapdash, he planned things to a T and beyond. He'd spend more time talking about his plans than putting them into effect. He was released in Japan as Wildspark, with the only deco difference being yellow paint on his face instead of red. Guzzle was an ROF Challenger 1 tank that would have made a better Decepticon because of his hunger for battle. Safe to say he's been fighting too long and has lost the plot. He was recolored in Japan as Hardspark. And Sizzle transforms into...
Alas, the V8 Interceptors. Piece of history.
Not exactly, but closer than any other Transformer has ever come.
Shut the gate on this one, Maxie. It's the duck's guts.
Yeah, she's the last of the V8. She sucks nitro.
Oh, come on. Interceptor? That has to be intentional. The bio reads very similar to another exposed engine and exhaust piped Autobot, Hot Rod, a turbo Revan thrill seeker who thrives on danger.
I'm the guy that keeps Mr. Dead in his pup.
He was recolored in Japan as Hot Spark. Again, that has to be intentional. Hot Rod, Hot Spark, the reddish color with blue windows, maybe Hot Rod's little brother? The Decepticon counterparts to the Sparkabots were the Firecons, a trio of fire-breathing beasts.
More bad news.
Cindersaur was a horned lizard, a pyromaniac that just wanted to watch the world burn. He was recolored in Japan and named Guzzle, reusing the Sparkabot's name. Flamefeather was a spark-spewing bird beast, has the distinct dishonor of being the only Decepticon ever thrown out of their military academy for being too violent? Now that's an angry con. Renamed Sizzle in Japan that year. And Sparkstalker was an insectoid monster. Don't let his beastly appearance fool you. He's actually pretty crafty and clever. Described as meticulous, cautious, and obsessed with minute details. He was recolored and renamed, no, not Fizzle, but Javel in Japan. Some old-fashioned spring-loaded gimmicks made their way into 88 with the Triggerbots and Triggercons.
And when the Triggerbots battle the Triggercons, there's no doubt there'll be a real shootout.
With the press of a button, hidden weapons could be deployed in vehicle mode. Not unlike Mask and Venom vehicles, as well as in robot mode. The three Triggerbots were Backstreet, the Porsche 962 race car, the high-strung bundle of nerves. Dogfight, the Grumman X-29 fighter jet, another battle-thirsty Autobot who's lost the plot. And Override, the motorcycle, another Triggerbot who relishes the battle a little more than Optimus would like. Cliffjumper would be proud at least. They were countered by three Triggercons. Crankcase was a Land Rover Defender 90. In addition to being the Ostriker driver, Yojo, another miserable machine, he's described as a whiner, a complainer, and an ingrate. Ruckus was yet another Baja buggy, a popular alt mode that year.
That's why I'm in Baja, trying to start a new society altogether.
A walking and rolling wounded warrior, perpetually injured but never stops fighting. One of the more inspiring Decepticons. Maybe the only inspiring G1 Decepticon? And Windsweeper, the B-1B Lancer bomber. The snob of the sky, such an airborne elitist that he's even shot down his own Decepticons for daring to share his air. The Headmasters and Targetmasters weren't the only returning gimmicks that got shrunk down.
It's Quickswitch, six-shot son, and he's on our side! Determined to make good, whereas Decepticon father went bad, Quickswitch joins the Autobots.
Quickswitch was the Autobot six-changer, the counter to the previous year's Decepticon six-shot, but he was quite a bit smaller.
Oh my gosh, brother. Damn. Oh my god.
Sounds like he has multiple personality disorder, with moods that rapidly shift from compassion...
Everything's gonna be okay. Everything you're worried about is gonna be okay.
...to mercilessness...
He's the dark art. And he's a dark art man.
...to happiness...
I love the Canadians. I love Canadians, period.
to anger.
I get angry a lot of times, dude. And I'm just like, what am I so angry at? And people are like, what can I do for you? And I'm still angry. Wonder what that comes from, man. That makes me mad.
He transformed from robot to jet to drill tank to laser blaster to hovercraft to flying puma. The strange-looking robot mode and gaudy color scheme is a major reason I've never wanted to pick him up. Again, if you love him, cool. I don't. Both can be true at the same time. He was released in Japan as 6 Knight with an improved color scheme.
The Transformers will return after these messages. We now return to the Transformers.
The Decepticons recruited a new combiner giant with the Seacons.
Now, from the bottom of the sea come the monsters of the deep, the Targetmaster Seacons.
Targetmaster Transformers.
Like the Constructicons, this team was made up of 6 members instead of the usual 5 for combiners. Snaptrap was the cold and calculating leader who transformed into a tortoise. Nautilator, the bumbling klutz, transformed into a lobster. Overbite, the menacing predator, transformed into a shark with arms and legs. Seawing was the stealthy manta ray. Scalor was an evil stinker. Literally, he transformed into a coelacanth. What the hey is a coelacanth? And Tentakill, the wolf in sheep's clothing. He transformed into a deadly squid. This team was a gimmick on a gimmick. Well, I guess any transformer with an extra gimmick is a gimmick on a gimmick, since transforming is a gimmick itself. So a gimmick on a gimmick on a gimmick. In addition to being combiners, the limbs were all triple changers, and had a third Targetmaster mode. 4 members could be attached to Snaptrap, who formed the torso, and the final member became the weapon. They formed the giant Piranacon. A typical destructive Decepticon combiner giant who was tough to control thanks to his appetite for destruction. He was known as King Poseidon in Japan. Another new gimmick debuted in '88.
New Transformers are here. Micromaster Transformers.
Our new commandos can go where no other Transformers can go.
Micromasters, they're smaller and faster. Transformer commandos that go where nobody else goes.
No more need for carrying cases or boxes to transport your Transformers. Micromasters were micro-sized Autobots and Decepticons that fit in your pocket. A dozen were released, 8 Autobots and 4 Decepticons, each in a 4-pack set. Rather than individual bios, a bio was included on the back of the card for all 4 members. For the Autobots, the Off-Road Patrol was made up of High Jump, the Gray Off-Road Truck, Mudslinger, the Blue Monster Truck, a Micromaster Monster Truck. It's like a toy version of Mask's Volcano for your 6-inch figures. Powertrain, the Orange Semi, and Tote, the red minivan, like a toy version of Ironhide for your 12-inch figures. They're described as a cohesive unit and experts at covert operations. The Race Car Patrol consisted of Freewheeler, a yellow Lamborghini Countach, Road Handler, a red Pontiac Firebird Trans Am, Tailspin, a blue Porsche 962, and Swindler, a gray DeLorean.
Great Scott!
Fast and fearless, they're recon experts. They might not do too much damage, but they're great at harassment. And for the Decepticons, the Airstrike Patrol was Night Flight, a gray Grumman F-14D Tomcat fighter jet. Stormcloud, a purple Dassault Rafale fighter jet. Tailwind, a blue A-10 Thunderbolt II plane. And Whisper, a black stealth fighter. Unlike the Autobots, these guys are always at each other's throats. fighting for sole credit or blaming each other for the team's failures. These Micromasters wouldn't be available in Japan until 1990 under the Zone series.
Micromaster Transformers, they've got the power to surprise.
Japan may not have gotten the Micromasters, but they more than made up for it by reissuing the Giants from the previous year with new decos and extras.
Oh my god, it is all the rage in Japan right now.
Fortress Maximus was recolored as Grand Maximus. And included a new Pretender shell for the Grand Transector body. Pretenders, we'll get into those in a minute. And Scorponok was recolored and retooled as Black Zarak.
I'm going to destroy you.
With a new head,
My face doesn't look the same.
Tyrant Spear, and dreaded brittle gold plastic. And the final Japanese exclusive reissue was Browning, the M1910 pistol, which was originally released with what would become Megatron in Takara's gun robo subset of Microchange toys in 1983.
You believe in Jesus? Well, you're going to meet him.
It featured a combination of colors from his two Microchange versions and spring-loaded bullet-firing action, only in the 80s. Okay, Sweet Billy Graham, the big gimmick for '88, the Pretenders.
New Pretenders are here. Autobot Pretenders look human, but
Pretenders hide the Transformers inside.
There were a lot of them, 9 for each side, 3 different classes, standard Pretenders, Pretender Beasts, and Pretender Vehicles. The same year the Heroes on a Half Shell hit shelves, these heroes and villains in a full shell dominated the Transformers section. The idea behind Pretenders was to turn Transformers inside out. Instead of a robot housing an organic, it was an organic-looking shell that could be split apart to reveal a transforming robot inside.
Oh my lord!
These are weird.
Hey, easy, buddy.
After years of Transformers being the giants and humans being the tiny ones trying not to get stepped on, it was strange to see Transformers inside human-looking characters.
I bet there's a cheese sandwiches in there.
Were they supposed to be mass shifters? That's what the Japanese Masterforce cartoon went with. Or giant shells that housed robots? That's what the Marvel comic went with. Once separated, the shell could be reassembled and remote controlled by the Master as a drone. There wasn't much articulation to the human shells. 2 points, in fact. Just each arm could swivel at the shoulder.
It was very simple, you know? Things were very simple back then.
Many of them included removable belts and helmets or armor, which helped lock the shell together, and weapons that were cross-compatible between the shell and the inner robot. The inner robots had a bit more articulation than most Transformers of the time. The first assortment of Autobot Pretenders included the whip-wielding Cloudburst.
What?
The inner robot, the actual Cloudburst, transformed into a Star Cruiser.
Hey man, it's cool. I'll just fly with someone else who knows how to fly.
Duplicity was the theme with this Pretender. His outer shell was like alcohol, making him uninhibited and witty.
I drank a beer. I drank another beer. 3 beers.
But inside the shell was a bot that followed the stone-cold philosophy.
DTA, you stupid piece of trash. Don't ever trust nobody.
He was released in Japan that year as Phoenix. Landmine had a sword, and the inner robot transformed into a Cybertronian ATV.
Well, that and a nickel will get your hot cup a jerk squad.
Not much personality to him described on the bio other than being a hard-working hothead.
I'm sick and tired of living in a van down by the river. Whoops-a-daisy. Whoops-a-daisy.
He was available in Japan as a mail-away exclusive named Lander. Wave Rider came with an axe, and the inner robot transformed into a Cybertronian sub.
Swamp leeches, everybody! Check the swamp leeches and pull them off!
The aquatic beachcomber, he preferred exploring the ocean floor over fighting, and enjoyed working with himself, literally. The out-of-body experience of working in tandem with his Pretender shell.
Hey, intern, give me a Campari, will you?
He was released in Japan as Diver, and instead of blonde hair like the North American release, he had brown hair.
The Transformers will return after these messages. We now return to the Transformers.
For the Decepticons, Assortment 1 included Bomb Burst, the vampire bat-looking monster.
Children of the night, what a mess they make.
His inner robot transformed into a jet. An actual vampire. Uses fangs to suck energy out of foes, and is hurt by sunlight. Probably not a fan of garlic either. He was released in Japan as Blood. Skullgrin's shell had a monstrous ram head.
I fear no man, and I feel no pain, because it is Vader time!
The inner robot transforms into a tank. Typical Decepticon, likes to destroy things. Sold in Japan as Dauros. And Submarauder's shell looked like a sea creature. 88 was all about the aquatic theme. The inner robot transformed into a Cybertronian sub. His bio says he keeps to himself, silent but violent. Released in Japan as Gilmer. Assortment 2 of the Autobots had animal designs on the chests of the human-looking shells for some reason. Like the other Autobot pretenders, Groundbreaker has an old-fashioned weapon, a crossbow. The inner robot transformed into a rocket car. He's fast, brash, and impulsive. Probably a big fan of Ricky Bobby. Never released in Japan. Sky High had a sonic scythe, and his inner robot transformed into a helicopter. All brawn and no brains according to his bio. A half-wit that sometimes can't remember where he is or why he's fighting. Did he get a Dinobot brain? Never released in Japan. And Splashdown, another aquatic warrior, featuring a shark's head on his chest. The inner robot transformed into a hovercraft. Veteran of many, many battles. Never released in Japan. Decepticon Pretender Assortment 2 included Bugley, whose shell looked like a walking Insecticon.
Oh! It was really gross and disgusting.
The inner robot transformed into a hovercraft. Master of the deadly martial art of Circuit Sue. Never released in Japan. Finback's shell was, guess what? Another aquatic monster.
Oh! It was really gross and disgusting too.
The inner robot transformed into a hovercraft. And I'm starting to get the feeling that they released twice as many fish-themed pretenders that transformed into hovercrafts than were needed that year. Japan seemed to think so, as Finback was never released there. Another miserable malcontent driven by making others feel even more miserable than he is, according to his bio. And Iguanus had a reptilian-looking shell with an articulated tail.
That guy's no good.
The inner robot transformed into a motorcycle. So enamored with his lizard shell that he rarely emerges from it. Never released in Japan. A final standard humanoid-looking pretender was released exclusively in Japan.
He was alone, and they'd left him 3 bottles of Jack Daniels and some weaponry.
And it's the best-looking one of them all, unfortunately, for people who lived in North America in '88.
Ridiculous. Completely ridiculous.
Metal Hawk.
No, you're absolutely right. That is my name.
Is the only pretender with die-cast metal. The inner robot features beautiful gold vac metal chrome on the torso.
Well, by God, this is exactly what I'm looking for, and what I was hoping for with this experiment.
And transforms into a jet. The pretender leader in Japan. Wise, compassionate, courageous.
If something is true, it is not sentimental, and I say in truth, I love you.
Never released in North America.
Holy cow, is that tough, huh?
I'd pick up a reissue in a heartbeat, though, as long as it still has the gold chrome and doesn't have the nostalgia tax. That's inflating the price of many Transformers reissues.
Yeah, but everything's expensive, isn't it? Oh, man. I was looking to pay, a buck.
Pretender beasts were the same concept, but the inner robot was housed in a beast instead of a biped.
Now, in the world of pretenders, there are pretender beasts, strange and terrifying. Pretenders hide the Transformers inside.
Catilla was a saber-toothed tiger in a saber-toothed tiger, with the organic-looking shell hiding the robot inside. It seems like a precursor to Beast Wars. Catilla's bio reads more like a Decepticon than an Autobot, a silent hunter that enjoys stalking his prey. Chainclaw was a bear in a bear. Sting would have been a fan of Chainclaw's quote, "The only thing for certain is uncertainty." Chainclaw was the worry-wart of the Autobots. Always worrying that his shell won't unlock, he'll run out of fuel, his joints will rust, and countless other things. To counter, the Decepticons had Carnivac, the wolf in wolf's clothing. Takes glee in the suffering of others.
You dirty dog!
And Snarler, the boar within a boar. Glad they eased up on the aquatic theme. Another typical Decepticon. Thieving, selfish, obnoxious, and destructive.
The more I learn about that guy, the more I don't care for him.
And finally, a pair of pretender vehicles, one for each faction.
They split to reveal a transformable robot, then reassemble as a fighting machine. Pretender Transformers! Pretender Transformers!
This was a pretender gimmick I actually liked. Instead of a barely posable figure or beast, the shell was a vehicle that the robot could use. Kind of unnecessary if that robot can transform into a vehicle himself, but still. Gunrunner's shell was a Cybertronian car which could hold Gunrunner in robot mode, with some futzing, or the robot mode could be transformed to resemble an engine and be placed inside. Gunrunner could also be transformed into a jet, and equipped with the turret from the shell. Well, the turret actually makes up most of the vehicle. When the shell vehicle was rolled on the ground, the cannons would pulsate, much like a Centurion's weapon system. Like Cloudburst, Gunrunner felt empowered and confident within his shell, but exposed and vulnerable outside of it. His Decepticon counterpart was Road Grabber. The shell was a Cybertronian car that contained a robot that could transform into a jet. The shell featured the same pulsating cannon action when rolled, and the canopy could be raised up into a shielded chariot mode for the robot. None of the Pretender Beasts or Pretender Vehicles were released in Japan, because they really understood that less was more, especially when it comes to Pretenders. And some more Transform Junior toys were released in Japan: Super Jinrai, God Jinrai, and Grand Maximus. Beastformers, the Japanese version of Hasbro's Battle Beasts, had been released under the Transformers banner in Japan in '87, but in '88 all Transformers branding was removed from the packaging. Beastformers and Beastformers Laser Beasts had many releases that year, but since they were no longer officially considered Transformers, I won't go in depth. The Sunbow animated series had ended, but 20 old episodes were re-aired, including Transformers the movie chopped into 5 parts, and featured new live-action footage of an animatronic/stop-motion puppet of Powermaster Optimus Prime, voiced by Peter Cullen himself.
I do believe there are things worth fighting for, but fighting doesn't solve all your problems.
Along with a kid named Tommy Kennedy, bookending the episodes.
Tommy, are you ready to learn a little history?
The bookends talked about the episodes as past adventures, but Powermaster Optimus Prime would name-drop new Transformers that hadn't appeared in the Sunbow episodes, but were available at the time in stores.
Darkwing and Dreadwind slowed me down. I promised Quickswitch I'd help him test Cybertron's new security system. I promised Cloudburst I'd help him redesign his retro rockets today.
In Japan, the Headmasters animated series wrapped up, airing episodes 25 to 38, and a new series began, Super God Masterforce.
You can't get a more fun show than that, you know?
Airing episodes 1 to 34. Showrunner Masumi Kaneda felt he had brought the events of G1 to a close with the Headmasters series, so rather than using characters that had appeared in that series, or the Sunbow series, or movie before it, chose a fresh start with Masterforce. Not an actual reboot, the history remained intact and canon, just not directly relevant to the events in the new show. The power of humanity was the focus of Masterforce, as the Headmaster Juniors and Godmasters, aka Powermasters, solely controlled the lifeless transector bodies, becoming the Transformer once merged with it. The Pretenders were still Cybertronians, but rather than giant shells containing giant robots, they could shrink down and through a metamorphosis look like humans. No actual opening shell involved. The storyline sees Earth being at peace from the Decepticons until the distant future of 2020. In a backstory very similar to Optimus and Megatron coming to Earth, the Decepticon Pretenders were followed to Earth by Metalhawk and his crew during Earth's distant past. The Decepticons were sealed away for a long time and restart their battle upon their awakening in 2020. The Headmaster Juniors and Godmasters are recruited to join the battle. Zarak returns, now Black Zarak, and he's countered by Fortress Maximus's younger brother, Grand Maximus, and God Jinrai in a battle for the freedom of Earth's sentient beings. The Marvel Transformers comic published issues 40 to 51, featuring many of the aforementioned characters, including one of my favorite issues of the entire run, number 42, The Return of Optimus Prime as a Powermaster, written by the godfather of Transformers himself, Bob Budiansky.
Optimus is becoming a super Powermaster! Who will win? Find out in Marvel Comics.
Marvel UK put out issues 147 to 198 and Transformers Annual 1989. And Ladybird Books in the UK kept the storybook tradition going with a quartet of books with optional audio cassettes to read along to. Autobot Hostage, Autobots Strike Oil, Decepticons Underground, and Decepticons at the Pole, all featuring characters from the 1988 toy line. The readings on the cassettes might not be up to Sunbow voice actor quality.
That's our route,
he said.
Good,
said Optimus Prime.
We leave first thing in the morning.
But they are like cool little radio dramas with sound effects and ambient noise.
Rocks started falling from the cave as Optimus Prime groped his way through the smoke and dust to freedom.
As far as licensed merchandise, it seemed to be winding down a lot from the previous years. A lunchbox and thermos featuring some of the box art, and that's pretty much it. No blankets, socks, TV dinner trays, or school supplies. The road was coming to an end with only 2 years left for G1. And then, much like Optimus Prime, the line's death led to legend and resurrection of powerful proportions. And that's the enormous history of Transformers 1988 edition. Thanks for watching. Hope you enjoyed. And aren't just pretending. Hit the thumbs up if you're so inclined. Feel free to share a memory below, and to join the tribe, hit subscribe. Good night, good luck, God bless, and don't let anyone steal your joy. Namaste. And time for the Patreon Powermaster roll call. Thank you all so much for providing the channel Patreon power. In order from most vintage to most modern. Luke, Scott, Chris, ZZ, Eric, Scott, Adam, Dominic, Brian, John, Rad, Judson, Matt, Thomas, Mr. Tinman Pin, Gold Any Ranger, Krishna, Christopher, John, Sean, Iron Lords Podcast, Clave, Dane, Cameron, Stray Fox, Jason, Brian, Anthony, Melvor, Tristan, Jace, Adam, Michael, Maddie, Jason, Carlos, Steve, Ford Lover, Mark, Micah, Mate, Obi, Avery, Sean, Audie, Bob, Michael, Quanoman, Jason, Christopher, Linda, Gaz, Jason, Derek, Robert, Joshua, Anthony, Mark, Stuart, Alex, Stuart, TJ, Matthew, Ashley, Stephanie, Jack, Hubert, David, Stephen, Greg, Sean, Scott, Christopher, Joseph, Ray, Tom Ericus, Bill, Alley Devil, Hans, Bear, Ninja, Christopher, Nevitz, Bobby, Scorpio, Matthew, Kelly, Ryan, Chaka, Michael, E-Boss, Chase, Gridiron Studios, Seth, John, Griffpool, Brent, and Alexander. Thank you all so much. And thank you to all the channel panel members for hitting the join button. In order from most vintage to most modern, Micah, MC DJ, Gaz, Dave, Armor Deep, Smarten Up, Marcus, Dino, Stephanie, Tom, Scott, Tim, Sasquatch Man, Sergio, Bing Bong Toys, Destron Designs, and Bo. Thank you all so much for supporting the channel.